Alright, doing a new series where I do tutorials for just whatever I'm using to make my games. So this one's going to be on low poly planets, getting it from Blender into Unity. Yep, said that weirdly. Start out with a new file, just delete everything in the scene. Don't need that. And then Shift A to create a new icosphere. Gonna bump up the subdivisions to 3 or 4. I'm gonna go 4. Bump up the size to about 5, although you can always change it after. And press Tab to go into edit mode. We've got vertices selected, and all we're gonna do is create a sort of path around by right clicking and then holding Control and just continuing around, and it'll path to the next point. And when we get a link, I'm gonna sort of just run it around, just make it look organic, and maybe down here. Up there's nice. And then you can just holding shift again, you can add a few more points, and I don't know, break up some of these big land masses with a bit of a smaller river. And yeah, just do that for a little while until you have something that looks organic. And once you're happy with how it looks, press Control and plus on the number pad, and it'll expand out the selection. And if you think that looks good for the rivers, then continue, but I actually don't like it looking too uniform, so I'm going to press Control Z and just add a few spots here and there. What I'm going to do instead is go over to the material section. It's getting a bit windy, sorry if you hear that. And add the ocean material. So I'll leave the specular at 0.5, and I'll set the material to a... Actually, I'm going to make it a bit interesting. I'm going to go green this time, maybe like a bluish green, so sort of like... I think that looks nice. I want to bump up the intensity and change the brightness here instead of there, because I'm not really sure what it does, but I feel more comfortable working on it like this, where you have an absolute hex value. So that seems okay. Maybe a bit brighter, so about there. And then, now that we have that selected, I'm actually gonna maybe, yep, that's right. We're going to go into faces, and we're gonna invert, but before you want to invert, you want to select a face and just deselect it. So it'll sort of, how can I explain, it'll deselect all the vertices. That way when you press Control I, you get the absolute inverse selection, as opposed to, it would be quite blocky otherwise. So you know what I mean if you saw. Anyway, we're going to add another material. Let me just rename this to C, and then add another one, call it dirt. And this is going to be a sort of sandy planet, so I'm just going to make like everything sort of similar, but I'm going to start out with like dark sand, so sort of mud, I guess, and then add that, and then press space to go into the search boxy thing that lets you choose what you want, or you can just press the hotkey. I think it was just I, it said there. And I'm going to set this to 0.2 on the thickness, and also 0.2 on the depth, so it sort of juts out of the water a bit. It looks nice like that. You could do it slightly less, but I don't know, I kind of like this. It's a bit more, got a bit more character in my opinion. Anyway, new material again. Gonna make this one the same sort of sandy color, but this time I'm gonna leave it up. Also, I almost forgot, we want to turn down these speculars to 0. A bit more yellow, I think. And then we'll call this, I usually call it grass, but this time it'll be sand. I'll assign that. And that is the basics of our planet. We can get out of tab, get out of edit mode to see what it looks like. And a bit more of a richer sand I think would be nice. A bit more of a richer sand. And yeah, that looks good. And now what you want to do is go back into edit mode and start selecting some vertices. So go back into vertex mode. And you just want to add some variation basically. So like this, that looks good. You want to turn on proportional editing and then press Control S. Oops, sorry, that's save. Alt S. And then you can edit multiple points at once, and they'll expand or contract on their vertex normals, which means they'll go out in their own respective directions as opposed to one direction. And then with the mouse wheel, you can change how much it affects that around it. So For this sort of planet, I don't really want mountains like that sharp. I kind of just want more soft gradients, so like maybe a bit steeper about there. It's easier to see it from this end. And then you want to deselect one or two, maybe reselect some others. So like deselect that one, leave that one over there. And then again, Alt S, and balloon it out a bit. That looks nice. And then to add some more variation, what you want to do is press Ctrl+ again on the numpad and add another material. We'll call this peaks or mountains or whatever. I'll just call it peaks. And choose what you want for this. So again, specular down to 0, intensity up to full. And I'll make this just a redder sort of sand, like a more coppery sand. And I think that looks nice, more like clay sort of mountainous area. I kind of like the brightness quite bright, so I'll leave it like that. And yeah, that should be the basics of getting the structure of the planet down. It's only been 7 minutes, so I'm making decent time. And I'll speed through the rest of this while I try and add some more variation. So we'll save that. That's a good time to save. This is 03. I've done 2 others. Well, I've actually done quite a few others. This is after I've honestly perfected my technique, but I don't know if that's okay. And it's been about 13 minutes now with the skipping through. I'm sure I can do the additions. So what I'm going to do is press H to hide. And now we're left again on this little central area. You can press Shift C. And it should, or Control C? No, Shift C. No, Shift S. Well, it was meant to focus me on the center, but I imagine I actually need to have Control S, maybe Shift C now. No. Nothing. Okay, ignore that. I still am very inexperienced with this program, so I have no idea why I'm doing tutorials. Again, Shift A, and we're going to add some like objects to put on the surface that look cool. This time I'm going to add a pyramid, obviously, because we're doing a sort of planety, sandy sort of planet. And then we'll add a new plane with another Shift A. So we'll get another plane, and we'll make this 0.4 just so it's a bit more even. And also, even then, it's fine. Usually I do 2 different types of monument or tree or whatever. I might do more than that this time. I usually do 2 to add variation, but I might have to do more because these are obviously going to be quite similar across them, so might have to add some more for better variation. So E, actually I'm just going to do I, why not? And then I again, and I like that, and I like that. That is cool. There you go, I like that one. That was extremely easy to make as well. Why not? And then I could even do it like this. Finish it with one of those. Oh man, I'm a genius. Where did I come up with this stuff? Oh, so good. So yeah, that looks okay. Usually you don't want too much in the way of... Actually, I don't know if that's true. I'm probably speaking out my ass. Do I want this first one to be wide or small? Probably wide, right? I want it to go up like this and then start coming in. Maybe. That's right, they're going to be slightly buried anyway. Okay, so that's far better than this other stupid one, so I'll delete this. And then this I will add to my scene. But before I do that, I want to unwrap it and I want to add a material. This is the diffuse I use, so I'm going to get into the materials now. Let me actually go back into my main planet. Okay, so once we've got a few of the models designed, we're going to actually unwrap all this stuff. Usually I do it straight away as I go, but never mind. And what you want to do is right click a face, press space and go similar, and then you go select similar by material, because basically what we want to do is have a very small material so it's very lightweight and just set it to a single color. So we're going to open up a UV edit quickly, so we're going to grab this corner little widgety thing, and here I'm going to press N activate cell, T to close that toolbar, and then go view, not view, go into this little box, then go UV image editor, and then we're going to press U on this screen and go unwrap, although you may actually have to add some seams first, although I'm just going to do it here. So select edge and just select some edges, go Control E, mark seam, and maybe I'll break this up, so like here, Shift Control E, mark seam, Control E. Or you can just press A twice, so A, and I'll do that. And now what you want to do is scale it down, way down. Obviously this wouldn't be practical if you're actually texturing, but we're texturing on a grid like this. So you see these are the colors I've used in my other two worlds. So I'm going to start here, so 3 across. So I'm doing it in like blocks of 2, so this is 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So this block here, so we're going to press G, make sure it's selected, G. So here's our little block, so everything in this block will take on this color. Make sense? Hopefully. That's why I have this set to hex, so I can just copy this, go over here to the pencil tool, no, maybe it'll show me the actual color, whatever, I'll just do it here. Press OK, and don't edit it because the channel is hidden. Of course, I was messing with the alpha before. There we go. Okay, I'm back. Alright, then we click that, although we don't click that because that's we still haven't selected the thing. Now we have. Okay, there we go. So now everything on that block will be green, if that makes sense. I really hope it does. So 1, 2, 3 across, because this is split into 4. It's actually split into 8, as you can see, or I don't know, a lot more. But that'll line up to that spot on the texture. It's just a 4x4 texture, so again, very lightweight. And it'll turn everything into that green color. We'll do the same with the dirt, so we'll right click a piece of dirt. Oops, I press tab, space, select material again, and go unwrap. Also, if you're doing specularity, you want to go here, and this is where you add the specular. So in the alpha channel, you just press plus to add a new layer, and you add it to the alpha. Change your color. I'm going to go for a 50%, so 0.5 on the specular, and I'll add it to the color we just had there, which was the new watercolor, because only the water in the scene has specular. So that should do it, I think, unless I'm wrong. And that's how you add specular. I'll show you how to port that over once we're actually in Unity. They actually look quite cool together. They've got like an interesting thing going. But never mind, we'll add them here and there. So I'll add one over here, and just find a good space for them really. Maybe press N to get rid of those, give myself a bit more room. And you'll kind of want them pointing like away from the set, like the gradient of the planet as much as possible, but you can take it to some extremes. Just try and add some character to it, really make it look cool. And you can change the scale if you want. You can move it in or down. Try and make sure it's at least mostly all buried. And I'll take this one over here. I like this place. This place looks really nice. They're all cracked and fallen. But yeah, that looks good. So we'll save that, and then we'll get to exporting, which is very easy. We're going to export in a file, export OBJ. But you want to deselect write materials, otherwise I'll include all the materials and sort of make it for you, which you don't want. It can be helpful, but in a case like this, you're spending way more on it's just a lot more costly is what I'm trying to say, because obviously each material is in fact a call to a shader, and the more you have, the more calls you have to do, and it's quite costly. Just trust me, did it. Anyway, we'll click this material, we'll select the diffuse, which is just this tiny, again, 4x4 thing that we made in Photoshop that I talked about. You can make it in any program, obviously Photoshop's a bit overkill for that. And we're going to get our alpha channel, our smoothness. You actually could go specular setup, but I'm really not too sure what the difference is, because I've got all these set to standard. I tried them with standard specular, but it seemed the same. Anyway, we're going to set this to the alpha channel of this map, the albedo map, I don't know how you say it. And this, once we put it into the scene, should look okay. Sorry, we got to scale it down. I'm going to use 0.3, turn off use file scale, and just turn it to 0.3 and then apply that. And that should be okay. Although for some reason we have it at the -10 position. And there we go. Let me fit it in between these two. So I'll go -3, I'll go -4, leave that number 2 at 0. Leave this at 0, and leave this at +4. So now they're all. This came out looking a bit swampy actually, which I'm not too fond of. Why does this come out so dark? Maybe I need to change the material. Change the smoothness. There we go. Yeah, turn the smoothness down. What have I got it to here? I've got it 0.5 there. Let me try 0.5 here. 0.5. I think I actually just might need to change the color up a bit. Alright, back. I realised what I had to do, and also, which I forgot to mention last time, you have to change all these settings on the actual diffuse or the map itself. So you have to turn off alpha is transparency, because obviously we're using it for specular. You want to change the filter mode to none, so no filter or point, and you want to change the compression to none, because obviously it's very small, you don't need to compress it, and if so, all the colours blend together, mess up. I also changed the max size down to 32, because you don't need to be very large, I think. I just did that because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to go back to materials, that one's set, and then we'll set this one to map 1. That everything else should be set there as well, and this one should be set to map 1. There it is. And I've set this third one to map 2, and I've also set the metallicness up, the metalness. Well, constant rotate again. I'll show you what this is. This is literally just transform.rotate at the start, so it rotates at 15 or minus 15 on the X and 15 on the Y, or on the Z, which is like a backwards-ish. I'm not going to explain that. And then just rotates it across the X. I think it's a local rotation, so it rotates like this as opposed to like this. So it rotates like that. Yeah, you can see. And yeah, that's the 4 planets we've done. I hope this helped. Oh wait, no, sorry. I'm totally lying to you. That's not the 4 planets done at all.
You gotta put your past behind you. Look, kid. Bad things happen, and you can't do anything about it, right? Wrong! When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on them.
Well, that's not what I was told.
Then maybe you need a new lesson. Repeat after me. Hakuna Matata.
What?
Hakuna Matata. It means no worries.
Like, see this one sort of floating off. I kind of like that. I could do it here, but I've already got it there. I'll see. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, that you learned something, or at the very least enjoyed me messing around with Blender. I'm not sure how many Blender tutorials I'm going to do. It's going to be more actually in Unity with code and stuff like that. So yeah, see you next time, and thanks for watching.